Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Cricket Unfiltered. I'm Manners. I'm joined by Paul Dennett. It's the final wrap of our Border Gavaskar Trophy coverage. It's the fifth day of the fourth test. And the big news today is India and Australia will be playing in the World Test Championship final. Paul, on a day where this test series sort of petered out, there was still quite a bit of buzz in the cricket world.
Yeah, the match in New Zealand was amazing. The conclusion to that, I think we can touch on that. That was very different to the conclusion of the game in Ahmedabad. You were right, though. Yesterday, I was getting a bit frantic and predicting all manner of collapses and getting really upset about something that ended up not happening. As you said, Australia cruised to a draw, and a 2-1 series loss is obviously disappointing. But I think from the 2-0 situation that Australia was in, to win the third test and to kind of have this test a bit of a stalemate, I don't think Australia could have done much better in the second half of the tour.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, if you break it down into two test series, India won the first one 2-0, and we won the second one 1-0.
We've
So,
got the Border Gavaskar Trophy, have we?
well, I don't know even if you can spin it that way because it'd still probably keep it. Um, but yes, just touching on the World Test Championship final, we'll get into today's play. But New Zealand beat Sri Lanka by 2 wickets off the final ball of the Test match. So New Zealand's last two Test matches have gone down to the last ball, and there were crazy scenes as New Zealand needed one for the win. Kane Williamson was on strike, and the Sri Lankan bowler bowled a bouncer. It went through to the keeper, and they ran it by, and the keeper tried to hit the stumps at the strikers end, missed. The bowler picked it up and threw at the non-strikers end and hit the stumps, and Williamson dived basically just at the time the Sri Lankan bowler threw the ball, and it was a neck and neck thing. I went wild in my living room, and on the replays it showed Williamson was just in. So New Zealand won the test match, and India go through to the World Test Championship final. Just quite incredible.
Yes, good description of that. And I think the other thing is that had it actually hit the stumps at the striker's end, I think Wagner probably would have been run out as well, and it probably could have been called a wide. I think that Williamson was agitating for the wide call, which is probably a bit of karma for what happened to England a week ago. But we almost had the very unusual spectacle of a match in which the scores finished level, but it's a draw rather than a tie because not all of the wickets were out. Little fun fact for everyone: back in the dim, distant past, they used to call those games ties, even though they were draws. Never happened in Test cricket, but a few first-class games finished in faux ties in that way.
Yeah, great test match. And a lot of people throw out the sort of standard, oh, there's nothing better than test cricket. But it is true. I mean, there's nothing better than cricket. It is, far and away the best sport on the planet Earth. But when you get wrapped up in a 5-day test match and it ends like that, there is something so theatrical about it. There's something so dramatic. There's something so, I guess, transfixing about, all that hard work coming down to the last afternoon. It was just a great game, and cricket is the best game.
And it makes the events of Ahmedabad even more disappointing because not only do we have a great game, as you said here, the previous game that England and New Zealand played was a great game, and the first 3 Test matches of the Border Gavaskar Trophy were unmissable. They were some of the most captivating sport that you could possibly get. So when you see it at its highs, it is disappointing that this pitch kind of neutered the contest. And as you said, it's sort of, I don't know the words you use, but it sort of fizzled out into nothingness. A series that for 3/4 of it was crackling along, superb entertainment, deserved a better finish than it got.
Yeah, one of our listeners, Martin Lawrence, wrote, "Hi, Paul and Andrew. To give you an idea of how boring this India v Australia game is, I've barely watched the last day." Look, I'm not so harsh on this test match. I enjoyed seeing some really good batting, and we got to see, 4 fantastic centuries, coming of age moments for Green and Gill. So I think there was a lot to like about this test match. I think, though, as we discussed, in the last podcast, somewhere in between is probably ideal. I thought the first three Test matches were too extreme, so I'm not so critical of this pitch. And I mean, I was nervous this morning when Australia went out to bat. I thought, you know, we still could collapse here. So, the game was still alive in the fifth day. So yeah, I didn't think it was as bad as maybe you're saying.
Well, I want to make a point about the pitch, but maybe I can do it after we do the summary of the day, because I want to make a balanced point, saying lots of the things that I liked about this series and the way that India hosted it, but just on this pitch, and I say this as a cricket fan and not as a partisan Australian, I think it was one of the worst pitches I've ever seen. I I accept that you enjoyed some of it because I can see you and I are quite similar and we are a bit mad. I reckon anyone other than you who says they enjoyed some of it, I think they're lying.
Well, one of the worst pitches ever. Okay, well, we'll get to it. Let's wrap up the final day. So Australia finished 2 for 175. They batted total 78.1 overs, so just over 70 overs today. Matt Kuhneman was the first player out. LBW did Ashwin. Had he reviewed it, it would have been overturned. So very
Live,
strange.
I didn't think it was out. I thought live, that's umpires call it best. Two things on that. Sorry to just jump in, but two things on that.
No.
One, why don't the Australians get better at this? I know he's a lower order player, and there's some level of hierarchy as to whether the reviews are going to be called for or not. But I think they need to practice it to the point where they know this a bit more. He must have realised that was heading down the leg side, or at least umpires call at best. And two, I don't think we should tolerate this any longer as cricket fans. That DRS has been no, I'm serious. DRS has been fantastic, and I think it has improved the standard of cricket immensely. I think it's now we're at the point where it's no longer acceptable for decisions to be wrong. We have the technology. We have to work out the next level so that these decisions are right. It's a bit ridiculous that we have all of this technology that gives us the answer almost instantaneously, and we're still having to tolerate incorrect decisions. I think there's a solution that needs to be found, and I've said it before what it is. And so I think that there will be a change. It might take a few years, but I think a change is coming.
Yes, I mean I'm keen for robot umpires. I think that's the sort of the actual aim of all this, and we can stuff Taufels, not making it scientific out the window completely. But just on Australia's use of the DRS, I do think Australia should look at getting a specialist DRS coach because boy, they are awful at it. I mean, I reckon you're right though that there was some theory that because he was a tail ender, don't burn it, and just craziness.
Well, it's because if you know the laws of the game well enough to be a good judge, you'll be you just won't be any good at cricket. That's the problem. We've said it before. There's the Venn diagram. Like to really know the laws intimately, so that you're going to say straight away, "Yep, that's hit him outside the line. He's playing a shot. Therefore, I am not going to agitate for this to be reviewed." They don't think that way. That doesn't work that way. So I do think, in all seriousness, that they need to spend some time practicing, even just watching on the monitor, as I said before, saying to a group of the bowlers, showing a replay of a ball, is that worthy of review? And if anyone says yes, they should say, no, clearly that pitched outside leg stump. And they go, oh, yeah, I forgot about that rule. And I think that that sounds, I'm probably over egging it a little bit there, but I do think there is something to that where the Australian players don't know the laws as intimately as they probably should.
I don't know about the laws, but I just think they're bloody awful at reviews. So, yeah, I think they need a specialist DRS coach. One Paul Dennett's eminently qualified. So Kuhneman's out, and then Usman Khawaja doesn't come out to bat. So, there was reports before the game that he was in doubt if he would bat, and we didn't see him come out when Kuhneman went back. So Labuschagne came out, and then they put on a nice partnership, Head and Labuschagne. They put on 139. Head made a beautiful 90. He was bowled by Axar Patel trying to drive through the covers, and the ball spun between bat and pad, and he was dismissed for his third score of the 90s, third score in the 90s in Test cricket. So a nice innings from Head. He really has made the selectors look like absolute pork chops for leaving him out of the first Test.
Yeah, it was a really nice innings. I was concerned early on that he and Kuhneman and then Labuschagne were going a bit slowly, but he did accelerate nicely, a little bit like they did in a smaller version in the runs chase in the third Test, and it was a pretty good ball that got him out. So yeah, he batted really well.
Yeah, that kind of spun out of the rough, that ball from Patel. Um, when I think of players that get out in the 90s, a lot of Test cricket, I think of two
Let me guess.
people.
Let me guess.
All right.
You've got two in your mind.
Yes.
One of them's not Clem Hill, although it should have been, but I'll forgive you for that. The two that are in your minds are
Not your mind.
Michael Slater and Steve Waugh.
Absolutely. Wow. I mean, those two have I think they've got the record for most scores in the 90s. So the way Head's going, he's got three already. He's doing well to catch them. Another player, Greg Blewett, another South Australian. He had a few scores in the 90s for his short Test career.
I'll tell you who didn't. In his 80 innings in Test cricket, Don Bradman reached 90 29 times, and he reached 129 times.
Well, there you go. Head was out for 90. Labuschagne was 63 not out. His first half century of the series, 213 balls. It was pure batting out for the draw. Steve Smith, 10 not out of 59 balls, definitely helping get his average up above. Well, it hasn't gone up above 60 yet, but it certainly will help. And we all know Paul needs that to just feel a sense of zen about the world.
Correct.
And then the game was called off. The two captains came together. I have to say, I mean, Smith was dropped by Barrett again off Patel. If Barrett's the second best keeper in India, I'm a monkey's uncle.
Yeah, it was a difficult-ish sort of catch, but I think he should have probably done a little bit better. But my thoughts on keepers. I don't want to get into it now. But show me the numbers, Menners. Show me the numbers.
Okay, but I think you sort of see my point about him just in isolation of your theory. So the match was a draw. India win the series 2-1, retain the Border Gavaskar Trophy. Congratulations to India. Congratulations to all the Indian fans that love their team so much and have supported them throughout the series. They got the win against probably the greatest cricket nation in history. Looking back at this Test match, obviously Green and Khawaja, the standouts from an Australian performance, and then Kohli and Gill from an Indian perspective.
I'd add Ashwin's performance in the first innings to that as well, but yes, definitely.
Yep. That's true. His first innings effort does look very good on that pitch. I mean, I was really when Lyon and Murphy batted together and put on that partnership at the end of the Australian innings, that's when I started to twig to the fact that this pitch was really flattening out. And unfortunately, that's what we got. I have to say, I'm going to echo something you said, whether it was last Test match, but unfortunately, there was a few times when I found myself with the commentary on during this Test match, and I have to say, the commentary was pretty awful throughout this series. What I heard, it never felt completely not honest. Is maybe not the word, but I don't know. Just the commentary, I thought was a pretty poor standard.
I've heard worse. I muted a lot of it, and I'm not the biggest fan of Hayden or Mitchell Johnson as commentators. I think that Mitchell Johnson was, to be fair to him, fairly inoffensive. He did come up with a lot of cliches and stated the obvious quite a lot, but he did it in a fairly benign sort of way. Hayden, to me, I think he'd be a nice guy to have as your friend. Fantastic batter. I think he'd be a good mentor. I just, after a while, he just wears thin, like he's crazy sort of I don't know, the flowery language that he uses and stuff. It's just a bit weird after a while. And anyway, but I didn't love the commentary, I must say, but it wasn't terrible.
I just never felt like they could really call it the way they saw it. That there's always this implicit feeling that you have to really sort of toe the company line on the coverage, which just goes against everything I sort of like about good cricket commentary.
No, well, that's true. I mean, that's a fair criticism of what's been in the case for India for quite some time. I think was it Ian Chappell a few years ago who basically made it public that they suddenly were expecting him to sign a thing that said he wouldn't criticize certain things, and he said, "I'm not going to do it," and he told the world about it. And it's a known thing that in order to commentate over there, you have to sign away your ability to be as brutally honest as you might want to be. And I don't think it's ever going to happen, but one of the great days of my life will be if I get to sign one of those contracts, and I will
Yeah,
say whatever they want.
yeah, I guess that's true, and I'm not criticizing the commentators
No.
for doing that, because, as you say, if we were put in the same position, we'd certainly toe the company line. Oh, that was a great pitch. Oh, Nagpur, best test pitch ever. Indoor, should play every pitch on every test on a pitch like that. What are you talking about, Paul? Anyway.
All right,
Well,
here's my rant. You ready for my
yes.
rant?
Yep.
Firstly, I said of all the first three pitches that, yes, that they were a little bit overcooked and too much in favour of the bowlers. But I said each time, give me one of those any time ahead of a 500 plays 500 board draw. And I absolutely mean that. And I said, echo what I said at the start of this podcast. The first three test matches were fantastic viewing spectacles. I agree with you that we didn't get to see the very best of the batting because the pitches were so bowler friendly. But that aside, I still couldn't take my eyes off it. This fourth test, I found an absolute chore to watch. I still managed to watch every ball, but I found it very, very difficult to do so. And I would say that if the third test pitch got rated poor, then I don't know if there is anything below poor, but this test match pitch should be rated worse. It's wrong for the indoor pitch to be rated as a worse pitch than this one, because I can tell you what, if you took any neutral person who's kind of half interested in cricket and made them watch the indoor game and then watch this game, 100% of them would have said that this game not only was boring, they'd say that they would not understand how this could actually be a sport. No one in their right mind would want to watch this. The first three games show that Test cricket is the best sport in the world. The fourth game, if that's the standard of Test cricket that we expect, it's not worth saving. Let it go. I'm all for all just bloody IPL and franchise cricket. It's rubbish. And as I said, I believe you enjoyed it because I think you're a bit strange like I am. But I reckon most people who said that they enjoyed it are just saying they're enjoying saying that they liked attritional cricket. But deep down, I don't think they really did enjoy it. And what it would have been had the groundsman for this pitch been told, just produce the best pitch that you can based on the prevailing local conditions, not, I don't know what the conversation was, but it's along the lines of, well, we got punished for producing a pitch that was a bit too spicy in the third test. Let's go completely the other way. Let's produce a pitch that is flat and low, and if it's a draw, well, we'll win the series 2-1. We're going to qualify for the World Test Championship final almost certainly anyway. That's the way we should go about it. Imagine if instead of that, they produced what we have been craving, and that is something, as you said, halfway between the pitches of the first couple of tests and this pitch. And we had a 5-day pitch that spun more and more as the game went on, wore down, and became all the spectacle of the first few games, but gave the batters a bit of a chance. That would have been absolutely fantastic. And we might be talking about this game just like they're talking about the game in Christchurch, but with a vastly bigger viewing audience. And if Test cricket is to survive, the notion that the home team can just prepare whatever they want in order to best suit themselves has to go out the window. Australia do lots of things wrong in cricket, and we bag them every time. But the one thing that they consistently do is they allow the ground staff to prepare the best pitch for the conditions. They don't always get it right. The Gabba pitch was no good earlier this year. The MCG pitch of a few years ago was a disaster. We've often been critical of the SCG pitches, but the mindset is to try to produce the best pitch they can for the conditions. That's what Test cricket deserves. It doesn't deserve this. This was farcical. And I say that without any reference to the score. India were far too good. They deserve to win the Border Gavaskar Trophy. They are a better side than Australia in Indian conditions. Are they a better side than Australia in neutral conditions? I'm really looking forward to the Oval Test to find out. And I said earlier on in the series, I'd be quite happy for the Border Gavaskar Trophy to go on every week of the year. It is that good, but not on a pitch like this. And hopefully that's a balanced viewpoint that people can see as not partisan and biased. It's what Test cricket needs to survive. Much, much better pitches than this one that we saw.
Mm. Yeah, interesting. I mean, I agree with you 100%. The pitches, groundsmen should just be left to prepare the best pitch for the conditions. But I also don't think Test cricket needs to. I think I think there's room in Test cricket for flattish pitches that allow batting to flourish. But I agree with you. I mean, you just can't have Test matches like this. And you sort of look at the Test matches in Pakistan last year, Australia played. They were pretty turgid as well at times.
Yeah, this
It's
was as
not
bad as
great
them.
for cricket. What?
This was as bad as them. It's not even as though it allowed batting to flourish. At least if they'd been going along at 5 and over, that would have been at least something. But it's that awful sort of pitch where the batters can't really get too much fluency into their shots, and there's nothing in it for the bowlers. It's like playing tennis with a half flat ball, or
Well,
playing soccer on a
yeah,
waterlogged pitch all the time. It's just
I
not.
get
It's
it.
not ideal.
But do you get why, say, Indian fans might hear us Aussies and think, boy, you guys, all you do is whinge about the frigging pitches. In the first three, they're spinning too much, and there was seven sessions of cricket across the three tests. And now there's a bit of a flat pitch, and you're complaining about that. I mean, do you think we come across as like whinging Aussies?
Yeah, I'm sure some of them will think that, but we criticise the Australian pitches just as much. And I don't know, it's like a bank robber saying, over the last year, I've robbed 3 banks. And in this court case, Judge, that's all you seem to want to talk about. What about all the other things I did? Well, no, of course we're going to talk about the reason we're talking about the fact that the first 3 pitches were too spicy and the last one was too flat is because that's exactly what was the case. And I gave lots of compliments to the first 3 pitches, as I've done in this podcast already, saying that it produced fantastically attractive cricket, and I would rather that than a really slow low pitch, and that's what we got in this last Test match. We're doing. I would be saying this if Australia had won the series 4-0. We're doing this with cricket's best interest at heart, not for pretty small-minded patriotic reasons. Which when you're getting serious about something, there's no time for that. So hopefully, any Indian fans listening will realise that we're not doing it to criticise India. As I said, there's so many wonderful things about this rivalry and this series. I just think it was a very disappointing end to it on this pitch.
I mean, you can make a case that we got 4 pitches and they were 4 bad pitches. I mean, the ground staff never got it right throughout the whole series, and that's not great. It's not great. It's not a great record.
No, and I suppose if we'd got what we'd wanted, and that is 4 pitches that were kind of halfway between the first 3 and this one, and maybe a little bit more life as well, we might have had the quality of side of the cricketers on offer. We might have had 4 pit test matches that lasted 4 or 5 days each, kept us on the edge of our seat, and were fantastic, as opposed to 3 test matches that lasted more like 3 days each, which were fantastic, and one, utterly turgid draw that was very, very forgettable. I'm sure India still would have won. They're a better side, so that's what we should have got. And I think that India, as the world leader in cricket and the powerhouse of cricket, they should do that. They should take the lead and do that next time, and have the confidence in their own side that they don't need to do these things to the pitches in order to win, because they're such a fantastic side.
I mean, there's some speculation that Rohit Sharma's a little bit more prone to interfere with the way pitches are prepared than his predecessor Virat Kohli was. I don't know if there's any substance to that, but this will catch up with them, that's for sure, because we've already seen Australia weren't that far away in some of these matches when they did prepare the pitches the way they wanted. So it's not a good policy to think you can sort of doctor the pitches to favour the home side.
Well, it'll catch up with them in the sense that it will catch up with all of us. That if the big cricketing nations don't get together to say, let's protect the future of Test cricket, and this is just one of those components, then it will continue to die away. And that's what really gets me, that we have neutral umpires. Now, I know that since COVID, we've now got one home umpire back again, and I'm fine with that because effectively DRS most of the time takes anything out of it. There should be
Takes the
neutrality when it
cheating
comes
out
to.
of it.
Sorry.
Takes the cheating out of it from the home umpire.
Well, no, I'm just saying
I'm
it
joking.
should.
I'm joking.
It should. We should have neutral pitch curators. Well, they don't have to be from other countries, but there should be sort of greater ICC oversight, and they should be measuring in advance the levels that are there and say, no, this is unacceptable. Do this, and the way we go, and the Rohit Sharma and the home board should be totally taken out of the equation. And same with England, same with all the other countries. That they shouldn't have a say in it. You get the home ground advantage by the fact that you're playing in the conditions that you are familiar with and that you have grown up with, and that is a massive advantage. And that's all Australia's had all these years, and they've done really well with it.
Yeah. Well, that was an epic rant, Paul. So, look, we should wrap up our daily wraps. A couple of things. There's some questions here. We'll get to them. Just a reminder, actually, that we're recording a regular weekly show Tuesday night, Australian time. Jaleesa Apps is due to join us. Definitely will be Paul and I. So we're going to wrap up the whole week's cricket news. So stay tuned for that full episode. We'll also preview the one day international series that's going to start at the end of this week. 3 1 days between India and Australia. We've got a question here from Robin. Do you think Axar Patel will bat higher up in the order in the future from now on? Are you also surprised with how little wickets he took in the series? Well, I mean, I think he could bat ahead of Jadeja, and I'm not surprised with the wickets because I think, Jadeja and Ashwin took them all.
I mean, his batting was absolutely astonishing in the in the series. He's got a first class average of 35 and a test average now of 36 from just 12 matches. So I don't think he's a better batter than Jadeja overall. If you look at the overall numbers, Jadeja's a better, but certainly on the form that he showed in this series, you pick him for his batting. It is difficult to get a lot of wickets when you've got Ashwin and Jadeja, I think two of the greatest bowlers in Indian conditions of all time, maybe the two greatest bowlers in Indian conditions of all time. But he probably was a little bit disappointing with his bowling, I think.
All right, Varun. I agree with you guys, but the pitches were produced by taking in mind that India will be missing their two big match winners, Pant and Bumrah. Well, they certainly missed Pant. I thought Barrett was way below what Pant would have offered, and Bumrah. Well, I mean, we all know what a great bowler he is. I wonder, Paul, if he'll be fit for the World Test Championship final because on a June morning at the Oval, he could be deadly.
Oh, absolutely. I hope he is. I hope he is fit for it. But yeah, Varun, that's the point that I'm saying that shouldn't be part of the equation. It should just be in the same way that you wouldn't say, well, we had to say that didn't men on. No, I won't use a number. I'm not meaning that he was cheating because he wasn't. You wouldn't say we're going to get an umpire to cheat because we're missing two of our best players. So you wouldn't. You shouldn't say we're going to have to prepare pitches in order to take into account that our two best players are missing. I understand that as far as the rest of the world is concerned, it's a legitimate tactic, and that's what you do with home tests. But I think it's at the expense of the spectacle, and I think that it should be changed.
Well, Paul, I think we should wrap up our coverage of the Border Gavaskar series, or at least our daily wraps. I have to say, I've had a lot of fun talking about each day's play. We're going to sort of go into the details of the series tomorrow, but it's been entertaining. Congratulations to India. We've seen, a lot of terrific cricket in there. And thanks to everybody that's watched and left comments on the YouTube videos or sent us messages. We've had a lot of support. We really appreciate it. Yeah, and just been a good test series.
Yeah, fantastic. The first three tests are three of the best tests I've ever seen. And this last test was a bit disappointing, but overall, fantastic. And India, well deserved. Congratulations, deserving winners.
So that's it from Ahmedabad. The fourth test of the series ends in a draw. Sharma and Smith have they shook hands and went off early. And yes, India claimed the series 2-1. And the two teams will meet at the Oval on June 7th. A bit of a real sort of playoff feel in that game to who will win the World Test Championship. So we'll be back tomorrow with Jaleesa for a full Cricket Unfiltered. Thanks for watching and listening.